the enemy soldiers' heads down. Now, some Matildas just had a 303 Vickers, some had a .50 caliber Vickers machine gun fitted to it. And you can see it's a pretty pathetic little vehicle. Small, two-man crew, guy in the turret is a commander, driver in the front, he's got his hatch open at the moment, which means, of course, the commander can't fire the gun. And the radio, they couldn't fit it in that tiny turret, so it's actually on the floor of the vehicle, behind the driver. So if the commander needs to give a radio message, he actually has to drop down out the turret, bend over and fiddle with the radio on the floor of the vehicle. Now this one has started off with a Ford V8 engine. It's designed by Sir John Carden up at the famous Vickers Armstrong Works. They started designing it in 35 and it was designed to a very tight budget. They're trying to use things they already had either being manufactured or made as sub-components, such as a standard Ford V8 engine. It's got a Fordson gearbox. It's got steering similar to the other light tanks Vickers were making at the time. And it's got a suspension system that they adapted from a gun puller, a Dragon. Called a Mark IV Dragon artillery tractor. They used a suspension off of that. Only 140 were built. An awful lot of them were left behind in France after that initial German invasion of France, Belgium and Holland in 1940. We understand now that one or two of them were actually probably picked up and taken out by the Germans out to Russia and used behind the lines for internal security out on the Eastern Front. Now, amazingly enough, back in Britain at the moment, here at the Tank Museum, we've got all three last remaining ones. This one that we drive with a bit of a stick engine, one complete in the museum, and also one range wreck that's got lots of holes in over by the workshops. Now, the next tank coming on. This is a tank that, again, quite often gets overlooked, but it's the tank Britain. This is about 25% of our tank production in World War II went into these tanks. This is the famous Valentine tank. And for Britain at the time, this was actually a really good, reliable tank. And the reliability was even commented on by the Russians, who we supplied it to as part of Lend-Lease. Now again, they started the project in 1938. We saw that Matilda 1. Even as they started building it, the Army said, we want something better. They built the Matilda 2. That tank at the moment is being restored in our workshops. If you want to know all about the restoration, go online. We've done a series called the Matilda Diaries. They couldn't make enough of the Matilda 2, so they start this project again with Vickers again using tried and tested components. And they put this into production because, again, they could see war was coming. They really needed tanks quickly. They didn't even build a prototype. Straight off the drawing board, they built this Valentine tank. And in the end, they made 8,300 of Valentines in the war. There's about 6,800 made in Britain. And we sent the plans and a sample tank out to Canada, and about 1,400 were made out in Canada. And 3,600 of these were actually exported all the way around to the Russians, so they could use them on the Eastern Front. Now this particular Valentine that's driving around now, we've just been doing a lot of work on it. It had trouble with the engine and the gearbox, so it's now its first proper outing. This is a late model. You can see it's got a bulge at the back of the turret. That's to fit the radio. And it started the war with a 2-pounder gun on. It then goes up on the Mark 9 with a 6-pounder, much larger gun. Now the Valentine was originally designed, as I said, as an infantry tank to help support the infantry on the attack. But it was actually used as a different type of tank. It was used as a cruiser tank. So infantry tanks, slow, heavily armoured. Cruiser tanks were supposed to be the tanks that went through the gap if the infantry tanks had succeeded in breaking through a front line. And cruiser tanks on the whole tended to be faster, lightly armoured, something like a 2-pounder gun in case they bumped into enemy tanks. But they were supposed to be the fast tank. We hadn't got enough cruiser tanks early in the war, so they started using the Valentines in the same sort of capacity as a cruiser tank. So out in North Africa, we're using these to try and fight the German Panzer IIIs. So again, it had an interesting career. They used them as a base for lots of other vehicles as well. So we had the Bishop self-propelled gun, we had the Archer 17-pounder gun, lots of things were done with the Valentine. And as I said, it's easy to forget about, but actually it's the major tanks we made in the Second World War in terms of numbers.
Just get them when they come round here.
Now, what was it fighting against? So we're going to bring on now one of those classic earlier war tanks. This is the German Panzer III that's coming on. Now, Germany had a real struggle designing and building tanks in the 30s. You have to be careful, we don't all buy into Goebbels' propaganda about how efficient and brilliant the Germans were at making tanks. They hadn't made tanks, they'd only made 20 of the A7Bs in the First World War, the only tank they made. They had a real problem finding the industrial base, the skills to build tanks in the 20s and 30s, and only by the end of the 30s are they starting to produce the tanks that Hitler wants to go to war. The German army says basically to Hitler will be ready by 1942, actually he jumps the gun. So the most numerous German tank that was used in the invasion of France in May of 1940 was actually the Panzer II, a training tank. They just got some Panzer IIIs and a few Panzer IVs ready, not that many still. But this Panzer IV, where the Germans were clever, they built their tanks with the idea they could be upgraded. So the very first Panzer III tanks went into action with the standard German anti-tank gun. That was a 37mm. They then put a bigger gun on, the 50mm. And this model, Panzer III, this is a Model L in the series. This one's got a long-barreled, high-velocity 50mm gun, so much more armour penetration from that gun. Now, it was built at the same time as the Panzer IV, that looked very similar, but the roles were very different. That was the intention. Panzer III was going to be the tank that did the breakthrough and fought other tanks if it met them. The Panzer IV had a short-barreled 75mm gun, so for firing high explosives. That was supposed to be a support tank, really for the Panzer IIIs or for the infantry. And during the production run, they realised actually the Panzer IV had got much better growth potential. You could fit a bigger gun. So it ended up almost swapping roles. The Panzer IV becomes a battle tank later in the war, and the Panzer III gets relegated to being just a support vehicle. And the very last, the Model N Panzer III, actually had the 75mm short-barreled support howitzer put on it. So they stopped making this Panzer III because they realised it's being outclassed too easily later in the war by 76mm guns Germans, by the T-34, the famous Russian tank, but they carry on building the chassis and they make them into what they call Sturmgeschütz. And the Sturmgeschütz famously knock out, in places like Normandy, more Allied tanks than any of the other more famous tanks, tend to get overlooked a bit, and they were the ones that were built on a Panzer III chassis, very, very reliable. And again, because they haven't got a turret, they're easier and less complex to build than a tank like this Panzer III. You could build 3 Sturmgeschützes for the price of 2 of these Panzer IIIs. Now this particular model, it was captured, shipped out, we think, via Naples to Benghazi in July of 1942, ended up fighting with the 15th Panzer Division out in North Africa, and probably captured at the Battle of Alam Halfa. We've got photographs of it being debombed, i.e. all the ammunition taken out of it by native labour out in North Africa before it was shipped back to Britain for evaluation. And you can see it's struggling a little bit, but it's still a good runner for us. It's run off and on pretty much since it was captured, and it's one of those vehicles, you know, it's good to be able to see period armour like this that we can still run. And it's being stowed as it was when it was captured. So we've got things like jerry cans on the back on that, welded on little stowage. Crews would often weld on bits to help them. And certainly this Panzer III had a metal rack put on the rear there, so it could put extra things like jerry cans, ammunition boxes stowed on the rear. 5-man crew, 3 in the turret, so you've got obviously a gunner, loader and a commander. Commander's dead centre, driver and machine gun operator and radio operator sit in the front, so 5-men crew. And when it was first looked at and evaluated by the British, they really thought the ergonomics of this vehicle were very good. They liked the fact the commander was in the dead centre of the turret, and he's almost got in eye line with his gunner, who's in the front on the left of him, and the loader on the front on the right of him. And you can almost see all the way through the turret, right the way front to the driver and the radio operator and bow machine gunner. And that was considered important because in the stress of battle, being able to see your commander's face, smiling, winking, doing whatever he's doing to keep you calm, very, very important. So on with another now classic Second World War tank. This one, the famous Sherman. And of course you'll probably recognise this tank because this is the one that was borrowed from the Tank Museum a few years back for the 2013 movie The Fury, and we've left it with all the stowage on that it was used as what you might call the hero tank as part of that film. You can see Fury on the barrel. This is the tank that was the Fury in the movie, and it was our guys driving their manual tank now. Two of our chaps were on the set of the film for 6 months on that film made. And we had our Tiger 131 went up to the set for 2 weeks, and after that filming, and that's the Tiger 131 in the same film. So what we've got there with the this particular Sherman is a later war version. It's got the longer 76mm high velocity gun on it, and it's got the wider tracks. Now the Sherman, we all know about the Sherman tank, it's this famous American design, brilliantly put together by the Americans in a bit of a hurry as war came. They've been testing various components that to see what would work on armoured vehicles throughout the 1930s, suspensions, what would be the right engines. They start by building the M3 Grant tank, which is really an interim tank. At the beginning of the war, that's the one with the high explosive, the howitzer firing gun in the hull, and then they put a high velocity, a smaller high velocity gun in the turret. They then go on to the M4 tank, which is this one, the Sherman. Named the Sherman, by the way, by the British. We named all the American tanks after American Civil War generals. And here they've got the turret mechanism working. They've now got enough manufacturers. They use the same drive tank as on the graph. And they're now being able to produce these tanks in massive numbers. And there's lots of little variations of Shermans depending on the engine that was used, the type of hull that was made, whether it was cast or whether in this case, as you can see, it's welded together, and improvements during the production run. Now often it's mentioned in documentaries, the Sherman's not a match for those late war German tanks. Absolutely true. If you're playing top trumps, 1 against 1, the Sherman will probably come off worse against things like the Panther, certainly the Tiger and things like the King Tiger or Tiger II. That wasn't the game it was intended for. The American doctrine was that Sherman tanks were there for the breakthrough. If you met other tanks you were supposed to be using, your tank killers, your tank destroyers. They were tanks that were built, or basically anti-tank guns put on a tank chassis, open-topped most of the time. They were the ones supposed to be knocking out the enemy tanks, not your Sherman tanks. Inevitably they met, and inevitably we've now got that picture of the Sherman being outgunned. There were just so many Shermans though. Just remember, it's a numbers game. In tank warfare, Shermans could swamp the better quality, the less numerous, better quality German tanks. Now, British tank design in a lot of the early war years gets a lot of criticism. This is a tank now going on that when Britain got it right. This is the Comet tank that came into service in the British Army later in 1944, and it was a very, very good design. They started with in 1944. Then the Germans attacked at the back of the Bulge and they hand the tank back in because they worried the crew got the other keys to the properly done. So they hand the tank back in and reissue their Cromwell or their Sherman tank to them. But they do get to see action later that year in 1945. They are being used. And why is it a good tank? It's got the famous Meteor engine in the back, and that's basically the Merlin engine, Rolls-Royce Merlin engine, derated. They took the supercharger off it, and at last we've got a powerful engine with good reliability to manoeuvre you around at a reasonable speed on the battlefield. And again, another one of those concepts, speed could be just as important as armour protection to save you on the battlefield, because if you're quick, it's less likely the enemy are going to be able to train their guns on you and knock you out. Now onto this, the Comet tank, they fitted the new 77mm, what they call 77mm high velocity gun. They made it shorter, they've got smaller cases for the ammunition. It's actually the old 3-inch anti-aircraft gun case. They pack it fuller with a higher pressure to it, and that gun has actually got better penetration on it than the 75mm on the Panther. And in Britain as well, we've come up with discarding sabot ammunition, so a bit of tungsten with a pot around it, that would fly out the end of that barrel, the pot falls away, the slug of tungsten goes at supersonic speed towards the enemy, and that was tremendously powerful. So it really was a good tank-killing weapon, that new 77mm high-velocity gun. So a good engine in the back, not bad armour, 74mm on the front, very thick, still got that stepped front of so many British tanks. Didn't slow the armour on the front because they had to fit the Visa machine gun on a vertical armour plate. And that's why we haven't got a lovely slope to the front of it like they had on the front of the T-34 or the tank afterwards that we'll see in a moment, the famous Centurion tank. So again, little design features. Someone was finally brave enough to say, do we really need that machine gun on the front? And they dropped it for the next tank that's coming in, the famous Centurion tank. But the Comet, 1,200 of them made, very successful design, and goes into service after the war. And there are accounts of Comets taking on Tigers later in the war. And again, because there was more Comets, the Comets come off best. Now this is, for many people, probably the best tank Britain ever produced. And it's interesting to think that really what we're looking at is actually a World War II design. The A41 Centurion was designed as a heavy cruiser. There was lots of experience that Britain was gaining in tank warfare. And they were trying to work out how do they make a tank as speedy as the Cromwell. They thought, well hang on a second, we really need that speed if we've got agility and a reasonable thickness of armour. So they used the same powerful Meteor engine. They thicken up the armour on the front of the tank. They get rid of that Visa machine gun. They've got Portsmouth suspension instead of the famous Christie suspension. That means you bolt the suspension on the outside. When it goes over a mine, you can unbolt it and replace it a lot easier than you can with Christie suspension. And we put on our 17-pounder gun on the first model. And it's got that sort of really good balance of the three things that make up a tank: mobility, firepower, and armour protection. And the Centurion seems to get that balance just about right. And the great thing with the Centurion as well, you can improve on it. So it started off, it rushed out to Germany just at the end of the war, missed it by about 6 weeks. They trialled it in Germany, they then put 20-pounder gun on it, bigger gun. And then at the end of the 1960s, and that's the gun that goes on the German Leopard tank, that goes on the American M60, on the first of the Abrams tank. Absolutely stunningly accurate bit of firepower there. And that's why the Centurion kept on in service, because it could be upgraded, upgunned. They added armour, extra armour to it. They gave it the one weak point of that fantastic Meteor engine in the back, very thirsty. So the problem they had was initially it could only go about 65 miles on the road before it needed refilling. So not that far. So they made another version of it where they put extra fuel tanks inside so they could get up to about 101 miles before it needed refueling. And then they did something called the rotor trailer or mono trailer. They put a trailer behind the tank that was armoured, full of petrol. You drove using that fuel right up to the battlefield, and only at the last moment you detonated a charge that blew off that trailer on the rear. That had an extended range. Now, it is actually Vietnam, Korea, of course, British officers decided to come up with back in the early 50s. This is actually in the Indo-Pakistan War of 65, Israeli, 1967 Six-Day War, all of a number of countries, and it's still in service to this day with the South Africans. They've up-armored it, they call it Northern Land, so it's still going on. 4,400 on the plane, that was a lot of tanks, and exported 13 countries around the world were using the Centurion at some time or another, so an amazing bit of success there. Now, some of you tank spotters out there, you're trying to work out what this one is and why it's coming on. This is a post-war tank called the PZ-61. And our workshop manager keeps banging on, Mike Hayton, who looks after the time, he keeps it running. He can't believe the similarities between driving this tank and the famous Tiger 131. And there's some reasons behind this. The Swiss, after the Second World War, they were trying to buy tanks of other countries in the early 1950s, but because of the Korean War, most countries that were making tanks had markets or use for them already. So they decided to build their own tanks. This is what they built. So they called it, when it goes into service, PZ-61, Panzer 61. And it's an indicator as well about sometimes about technology, but also about national requirements of the tank. They're self-defensible, they realise that that's the part of the country. And as we all know, there's lots of it, mountainous, narrow roads. You need a very precise steering system. And the regenerative steering system that's in this PZ-61, it's got a steering wheel in it just like the Tiger. And we actually are using this vehicle to train guys before they move on to Tiger 131, so they know what the issues are about driving it. It's quite a narrow tank as well, because again they were worried about those narrow Swiss mountain roads. They needed to be able to get that tank to where it was going to be wanted, and that might be some pretty rough terrain to get there. They fitted that 105mm, the L7 gun again, the British gun, and they put in the back an engine that was really, you can only call it like a Mercedes bus engine. It was about the one part of the vehicle they imported was the engine to put in the back. But as a Swiss tank, went into service right the way through about like the early 1970s, when Switzerland bought Centurion and invested. They upgraded their PZ-61, and they came up with another version called PZ-68. It had some minor improvements on it. But again, sometimes people ask the question, why is the tank built roughly the same time? It's done so very different. This is an example that it was built with those very national characteristics of the country they thought it should be used on. Never exported it, kept it for their own country's use, and this one was very kindly given to us some years back by the Swedish military. Driver in the front, 3 men in the turret, and again you can see it's a cast turret, fairly rounded cast turret, not that dissimilar, it's a little bit more rounder and taller than those that were being made in the mid-1950s for the Soviet tanks, things like the T-54, T-55 tank. Now the PZ-61 is going to park up, and then we're going to bring on our famous Tiger 131. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, you know all about Tiger 131. There's an awful lot out there you can learn about Tiger 131, and so we're going to let Tiger 131 drive around so you can listen to that engine note, take your photographs and listen to it on its own without me commentating.
I take this off or no? No.
It's still keep it.
So, Tiger 131 will be parked up there so we can get some photographs, and we just thought we'd finish off as well with what Germany did next, as it were, after the Second World War. We in the West, we had that feeling we wanted tanks with thick armour, good protection, powerful guns. When Germany in 1955, when the Bundeswehr was set up again, and they were allowed to start designing tanks, they went in a very different direction to what they'd done with the Tiger. And this is the tank they designed, the Leopard 1. And the idea that the Germans learned from World War II is, to put it bluntly, however thick your armour is, something out there will penetrate it. So maybe the best way to protect yourself is speed. And with the Leopard, the first models of the Leopard only had 30mm of armour on the front, compared to, say, the 10 centimetres of armour the Tiger 1 had. And they made the Leopard, they gave it a thumping great big MTU diesel engine in the back, and they made that tank fast and mobile. And again, very sensibly, they gave it that superb British gun, the L7 105mm, and the idea was speed was your protection, not armour plate. So it was a very different lesson from World War II that the Germans learned compared to, for example, the British. We decided we never wanted to be knocked around again by tanks that had more protection or a bigger gun than us. And that's why in Britain we decided to go for heavier tanks, Centurion, and then the Chieftain, and then even Challenger 1 really fits that pattern. So different countries, they picked up different lessons from that war. So Leopard goes down a very, very different avenue initially than what the Germans had done in the first, or with their later tanks of the Second World War. Now, we're going to park up those tanks there for about 5 or 10 minutes so you can have a few opportunities for some photographs, and then we'll give you a cue, because we'll then start to move the tanks off the arena, and then we'll also announce when we're going to move the Tiger. Again, it'll be driving off the arena, up past that vehicle conservation centre, turning left, opposite our workshop building, going up the road beside the museum and entering the museum into, so it's going to end up in the Tiger, the new Tiger exhibition area. So again, if I could just let you know, if you want to go and watch it too.